West Ham invite the Eagles Crystal Palace to the London Stadium on Saturday in a game that I cannot wait to see, and I'm sure you can't either. This is your West Ham versus Crystal Palace preview. We will be discussing the opposition side, how West Ham could line up, how West Ham can exploit Palace's weaknesses, but also look out for their strengths. And Palace have they've gone through a transitional period. Patrick Vieira's come in. He's adapting the way that they want to play. It's a brave move from them as a club. It will take a long time for me as an outsider to see them start to progress and improve. They've made some impressive signings. I think Joachim Andersen, Mark Gahey, two really quality centre-backs and integral to what Crystal Palace are trying to achieve in a possession-based pressing side. But obviously they have gone from Roy Hodgson, a 4-4-2 master, incredibly organised, lived off the transitions, and it made West Ham's games against them last season very end-to-end. And we played with the gauntlet a little bit. We tried to play with their press. We worked into the spaces. West Ham have since developed as a team. You see that against Leicester. You've seen that against Newcastle. If Crystal Palace, and I don't think this Palace side will go to a low block, West Ham do have the tools to open them up in a multitude of different ways. But let's talk about Crystal Palace just before we get into West Ham, because obviously I could wax lyrical about how West Ham have played over the last 2 games or so. Now, we are looking at a side that wants to build out from the back. We're looking at a side that, again, is trying to be compact and defend as a team. And it's something that West Ham have done. Let's be honest, last season we did exactly the same. You watch them play. Obviously, they've stuck with Joel Ward and Tyreek Mitchell. I think Tyreek Mitchell in particular is a player that impresses me in terms of dealing with one-on-ones, reads the game very well, reads the space very well between both him and the winger. And again, you're looking at Jarrod Bowen coming up on that side, maybe Soufal overloading. That may be a way that West Ham try and hurt him. But you see that back four, they'll get compact. But what interests me is they go to a 4-5-1 out of possession. Conor Gallagher and MacArthur sitting back at times with Cheku Kouyaté looking to be the free single pivot. And we'll talk about how Kouyaté's role in this team does leave them particularly vulnerable. Now, the centre-backs I've mentioned before will try and build out. They'll play wide at times when they've got the ball and they'll use Kouyaté to play into. That is problematic. Not necessarily if Gahey and Anderson were going to try and switch the play. I don't think Palace will be adventurous enough from a deep line position to hurt West Ham in that sense. And you look at our back four, our 2 defensive midfielders, I feel that we can deal with what they're going to throw at us, whether it's switch balls, whether it's playing into the midfield. And I don't think on that note that the 2 centre-backs are going to play into Kouyaté. They will try and play it into the full-backs, and then Kouyaté will try and pick it up from there and progress. I love Cheku. I love Cheku Kouyaté. Honestly, as a West Ham player, when he first came in, he was absolutely outstanding. And I think I don't want to write him off. I think it's an area that West Ham can definitely exploit, in particular with the press. He isn't good enough, in my opinion, trying to play out from the centre-backs and progressing the play. Is he athletic? Can he get around? Yes. Has he got energy and physicality to try and stop West Ham winning the ball in that final third? Of course he does. He can't deal with the press very well. Brentford showcased that, and West Ham will do so. And we're a very unique team, again, in our attacking midfielders. They will go and press the ball. I wonder whether Moyes looks at this and says, do I stick Pablo Fornals in that number 10 position just to put pressure on him? Or can I use Mikel Antonio to maybe hurt him in the way that he hurt that Leicester defence on Monday evening? And I think he'll try and give a bit of protection, and he will go and he will vary, particularly when West Ham have got the ball in the final third. But there is a massive opportunity here from West Ham if Palace are trying to play out from the back to push those attacking midfielders a little bit higher. So we can even afford it to a degree to be conservative with Declan and Souček in terms of their positioning. We had to play them a little bit higher against Leicester because of Tielemans' ball playing ability and how Ndidi will pick the ball up off the centre-backs and they'll try and progress the play there. That was a tactic from West Ham to try and nullify the way that Leicester will build their play, and it can be used, but it can be used a little bit more subtly in this game. Gallagher and MacArthur. I think Gallagher is a really good signing for Crystal Palace, a player that I think if West Ham could have got him on loan would have added a little bit of decent squad depth and gives them real energy in the middle of the park. I think his work rate's fantastic. He'll track back. He'll try and progress the ball. Interestingly enough, he'll get the energy and he's got the impetus to try and get him beyond the striker. I haven't really seen enough of Palace in that final third in terms of how they start to hurt opposition teams enough to tell you a direct pattern in terms of how they'll play. But Gallagher in particular, we see him last season for West Brom, maybe in a more conservative role. We'll try and get him beyond our centre-backs. So it does give us something to contend with. We talk about midfield runners and how difficult they are to pick up. And we know that from Souček's point of view. But again, that's a man to keep an eye on. And MacArthur, I think from my perspective, and I think when we look at this Palace midfield in general, Kouyaté, Gallagher, MacArthur, all lost the ball over 10 times in that game against Brentford. For a possession-based side, is that good enough? Can they deal with the press well enough? Are they press resistant? And I feel that the answer is no, and I think that's why West Ham need to be a little bit more adventurous and go and winning that ball a little bit higher, because I do think we'll create opportunities for ourselves. Schlupp and Zaha, players that, again, stay wide, can cut in at times, can cause teams problems, are decent in terms of taking on men 1v1. I think West Ham, when a player like Zaha or Schlupp will pick up the ball, they're going to pick it up invariably in West Ham's final third. I'm not seeing enough from Palace to tell me that they're going to pick the ball up of Tyreek Mitchell or Joel Ward and progress the ball in the way that we've seen Benrahma, Fornals and Bowen do that. And it does mean that if they are going to get involved in the play, they are going to get involved further up. I think what we've seen in the past 2 Premier League games, particularly Brentford and Chelsea, they've used the wing-back system. So they've had the opportunity to double up on a player like Zaha and Schlupp. And it does hurt them because, again, it is very, very difficult to try and navigate past 2 players and feed into one target man. And it's tough for them to progress the play. It'll be tough for them to be creative against West Ham. And I do feel confident in that sense with 2 hard-working players. And I know Benrahma, listen, he's become much better, much more decisive. And it's been really pleasing to see. As long as he switches on, if he does play down that left-hand side, then I think we'll be comfortable, relatively comfortable in negating the threat. And Benteke, a player that has had joy against West Ham previously in the past, an aerial threat invariably. But if Zuma can't get done in time, I believe that deal will get through. Craig Dawson, I feel, is the man to deal with it. So is Angelo Ogbonna. Imperious in the air, great relationship with one another. I think you can really negate Benteke. And you know, Palace will try and press West Ham. And the most impressive thing about the Leicester game, or in particular as a player, was Declan Rice. Declan Rice lost the ball 4 times in that game. His passing accuracy is 96% at the minute. If you're looking at a player that's going to play out from the press, and not only play out from the press, but pick the right pass. West Ham's passes, particularly from a deep line midfield position of Declan Rice, they're all vertical. They're all through the lines. That's where we'll hurt Palace, because Vieira will want his side to press higher. You'll push Ward and Tyreek Mitchell higher on West Ham. Again, you'll see MacArthur and Gallagher doing the same and following in behind the likes of Zaha and Schlupp. If West Ham are composed in possession, which I do feel that we can be, then there is a hell of a lot of space in behind that midfield. And I don't feel Kouate, as much energy as he can offer, is good enough as a single pivot for what Palace want to do. If Palace wanted to go around this the right way, maybe they should play with 2 defensive midfielders and a defensive number 10. But they won't do that. And that's where West Ham will come into their own. If Declan Rice and Souček beat the press, again, they're both fantastic at progressing the ball. I think there's opportunities in terms of transitioning and getting Soufal and Creswell high up. It'll get deliveries into the box and it will put Crystal Palace under a significant amount of pressure, particularly if those 2 number 8s can't get back in time. It's something that West Ham need to take advantage of. And when we're in those transitions, I cannot wait, because maybe I'll get clipped up for this, but I just feel Fornals, Bowen, Benrahma will absolutely thrive. They're thriving at the minute with the fullbacks getting on and giving them options. They're thriving at the minute in overloading in the middle of the park. I don't think in transitions, if Benrahma, Fornals and Bowen are all on it and they're all progressing the ball and they're working off one another, that Crystal Palace can deal with West Ham. And I haven't even mentioned Mikel Antonio. And that's the difference here. West Ham have got variability in terms of how we want to attack them. Mickey can come and he can hold up the ball and he can introduce the attacking midfielders. I actually think the way that West Ham will play will force Crystal Palace into a deep line defensive position. They'll have to go 4-5-1 to deal with West Ham. And the longer that goes on, and the longer they're under pressure, and maybe the longer they feel that they have to go and get a result, because it's important to remember Vieira, I think he'll obviously have enough time. He's brought in his own signings. We'll be under pressure here to get the ball rolling. And again, not getting that result against Watford in the Cup, not getting the result against Brentford, or not getting the win. And to be fair to them against Brentford, I thought they were a better team. Maybe they didn't create the clear-cut chances, which is where I feel West Ham can benefit from. But in terms of pressing them and regaining the ball, I felt that they were prominent enough. But on that note, I just feel West Ham can really hurt them with that attacking 4, the variability, the movement's going to hurt them at times. West Ham have just, listen, at the end of the day, we're at the London Stadium. We can afford to be brave here. I think, people would have said, should you really go and press Leicester? I think there are just certain game plans. And what I've seen from that Palace midfield is I don't think they're good enough to regain possession and beat the press. And West Ham in that second goal were absolutely superb from that angle. So I think West Ham can dominate if we're on the front foot, if we press. I know people will be sitting there saying, should we really play a higher line with Craig Dawson? I think what we saw against Leicester was, if you negate the service from the midfield, and let's look at Palace, they're going to build from Cheku Kouyaté. They're going to build from MacArthur and Gallagher. That's where they're going to progress the ball. From what I've seen of them, despite having a target man, they're not looking to use Benteke and bring in Schlupp and Zaha a bit central. That would cause West Ham some issues, even though I felt that we could deal with that. So I think we can afford to be a little bit more liberal in the line that we're playing against Crystal Palace. And I was impressed with how well Angelo and Craig Dawson dealt with Jamie Vardy and Harvey Barnes, because that could have been a real nightmare for West Ham. But their positioning, reading of the game, defensively as a back four, the way that we step back, again, we can deal with Crystal Palace 100%. And the real threat from them, for me, is the additional run of someone like a Gallagher, or it is deliveries into the box. I haven't seen enough of Palace yet from this season to suggest that they are going to start peppering the box, or that they're going to try and play intricate play. So I feel that we can be comfortable in this game. In terms of expectation from West Ham's point of view, again, I think it's a game that West Ham can win. I'm impressed with the way that we're controlling games as well. I think with a team like Palace, they're going to want to make it chaotic. They're going to try and disrupt West Ham's rhythm in playing out from their press. But that West Ham have shown to me that we're good enough. We are good enough in terms of we can get the centre-backs wide. We can drop Declan a little bit deeper if we want to do that. That's immediately a way that West Ham can beat the front three. And you've still got Souček. Then you've got Fornals, players that thrive in that space. That's where West Ham, for me, creatively will be fantastic in this game. And I think we can afford to use Mickey in a more central way. Listen, Antonio is fantastic. He really, really is. And when you watch him live, he can do a multitude of things. He can drive from deep. He can play on the left, which he favours a fair bit. He can hold up the ball. Brilliant, no doubt. But I don't even think we need to use him in that way. I think West Ham can afford to play him on the shoulder of Anderson and Mark Gahey and put them into areas they don't want to be. I like them as defenders. They're ball-playing defenders. But let's be clear here. With the emphasis of playing out and being a possession-based side, Mikel Antonio, whether he presses them or plays on the shoulder, will cause them absolute nightmares. And with the way that we play, when we push our attacking midfielders further and in beyond, I don't think they'll deal with that. And listen, I think Chelsea showed us a little bit of a blueprint in terms of, can Palace deal with the transitions? No. Where's West Ham's biggest attribute? In those transitions in the counter. So I think it's a game that West Ham can really take the impetus in. I think we can win it. I am going for 3-0. It probably seems a little bit too over the top, but the way that we're playing at the minute, I think we're catching Palace as well at a time where they're trying to find their feet. I think probably long term, if you're a Palace fan watching this, you will find your feet. There's going to have to be a lot of patience in there, but I think West Ham have met them at the right time. I think home advantage is huge, particularly with the atmosphere on Monday evening and the momentum that we've got. And I think it's important for West Ham to chalk up points at this end of the season with the fixtures that we've got. We know the Europa League's around the corner. We know that the pressure on this squad is incredibly high. And we need to chalk up these points now, because I don't know how this side is going to react. I don't know what David Moyes' strategy is in terms of dealing with Europa Thursday night, Sunday night. I do trust him as a manager, and I trust these players absolutely complicitly. Doesn't mean they're immune from criticism, but I genuinely trust this first team in this squad. So I think we need to get the points now. Palace is a brilliant opportunity. Southampton, for me, is another opportunity. And I'll talk about that in detail, I'm sure, at a later date. But that's my preview. I appreciate there's quite a Palace intense focus in there. But I think it's important to give context to that team to understand where West Ham thrive. We know where West Ham thrive. And the weaknesses, I think, is in that midfield, just to clarify, if you didn't already know. Sorry, Kouyaté. But that is it for today. That's it for your West Ham versus Crystal Palace preview. I'll be at the game on Saturday. I'm absolutely buzzing for it. Some of the West Ham Way boys will be up there, of course. Drop a like on the video if you do enjoy this type of stuff. Put something in the comment section if you would like something different, something else. Maybe you want it a little bit more intensely West Ham focused. Maybe you want graphics in there. I'm sure I can work something out. No problem whatsoever. Subscribe to the West Ham Way if you're watching and you are new. Take care, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you all on Saturday. Come on, you.